a guide to all of the different meditative practices that are out there, all of which will lead you to the same point. Okay, so you can pick and choose which one or ones. I would recommend trying them all, because as you practice them all from different perspectives, it begins to make sense a little bit easier. As we move from all of these, the linguistic, the phenomenological, the skeptical, and the classical, we begin to see what they're all talking about. Okay? Now, we've come to the existentialists, and this is interesting because remember that Husserl is the founder of the modern school. But what happened was everybody stopped practicing phenomenology and went off into their own little world. Okay? So even though they're all claiming, all of the existentialists are claiming that they are in fact practicing phenomenology, they are not. They have lost sight of everything. And they're practicing their own little version of Weltanschauung, the one thing that Husserl warned against and the one thing against which he railed against, saying that this is horrible. We never want to do this again. Okay? Because it diverts us. And it adds more nonsense into the dialogue that we're having about this great mystery that we're engaged in. So Martin Heidegger, brilliant, absolutely brilliant, one of my favorite philosophers, because of his total understanding of the historical Greeks. If you want to understand the way the Greeks think, read Heidegger. But if you want to understand the nature of reality and you want to understand the actual dialogue that we've been having for the last 10,000 years, Heidegger is worthless. Born in 1889, died in 1976. He was the premier student. He was the successor of Husserl. Husserl handpicked him because of his brilliance to succeed him as the progenitor of phenomenology. His major work was called Sein und Zeit, Being in Time, published in 1927. Okay, it's thick and it's German. And when the two people who John McQuarrie and Edward Robinson translated it in 1962, they really didn't have a good way, they still don't, of translating all of the neologisms that Heidegger had created in German into neologisms in English. So we get kind of stilted language. It's very difficult to read, especially if you don't understand where he's coming from. Anyway, so the first English translation in 1962. There was a second translation by Joan Stambaugh in 1996, which is a teeny weeny tiny bit, a little more readable, although not much, okay, because Heidegger is dense, he's hard to read. So basically Heidegger is saying that this is an application of the phenomenological method which he learned from Husserl, but he hated the phenomenological method of Husserl. Because the phenomenological method, like all of the other methods that we're looking at, lead us back to an idealist position where the primary being is thinking substance. Okay? Every time we start to analyze this great mystery, we are always stuck here, because we are the instrument by which all of this stuff is explored. And we, the thinking substance which we are, then becomes the lodestone, the touchstone by which everything else is measured and by which everything else is encountered. So every analysis that we run through, if it runs far enough, will lead us right back to this idealistic viewpoint. Okay? And Heidegger hated idealism. He hated it with a passion. He was a materialist. All right? So he hated the phenomenological method, and in fact he spoke badly about Husserl and his method to everybody who would listen to him when he was an undergraduate. He even wrote a few things in his journal, which we now have access to, which really denigrated Husserl. But since he knew that that was his path to a profession, he sucked up to Husserl in public. So he was kind of a weasel. All right? Brilliant weasel, but a weasel nonetheless. And in fact, like I said, he starts off, his intention in Being in Time is to provide a materialist explanation for everything. All right? right? And never once have to refer to the concept of consciousness or spirit, ever. All right, that's his intention. The original outline of Being and Time would have 3 sections. The first 2 sections, and then the third section where he finally gets rid of this concept of idealism forever. However, he never wrote the third section. The reason why he never wrote the third section is because by the time he reached the end of the second section, he was right back where everybody else was at an idealism. So he abandoned the project and never started it up again. He wasn't going to abandon his materialist viewpoint, but he did abandon his philosophical attempts to explain reality, and retreated all the way back to the ancient Greeks so that he wouldn't have to be embarrassed by the fact that he had failed in his project. Okay? So instead of talking about consciousness or spirit or soul, the thinking substance which we are, and its relationship with this stuff and the mystery that entails, he borrowed a concept, he borrowed a term from Hegel. Hegel talks about Dasein, which is sort of the environment in which we exist. Dasein literally means being there. Okay? So Dasein, if you translate it literally, means being there. So Heidegger starts off with this concept of being there as the replacement for the concept of soul. Okay? That which we are is Dasein. We are there. We are that being which is there. Not consciousness, not soul, not spirit, not thinking substance. We are the Dasein. We are the being which is there, which is located somewhere in space-time, which is located in a world. So he talks about being in the world, being dash in dash the dash world, in der Welt sein, being in the world. Okay, and so this is the concept. Remember, Hegel talked about consciousness as the result of the interaction between the thinking substance and the extended substance. Consciousness arises because these two things get together and have experiences, and that's consciousness. Okay, so he sort of started this whole thing by saying that consciousness cannot exist sort of independent of that. So he's actually a materialist too, even though he's the founder of the German idealist school. Because he's saying that consciousness itself, even though there are these two seeming substances that get together and interact, consciousness itself is the product of those two things. And therefore, there is really only the interaction of the two things. Take out one part of it, and everything falls apart. So he's sort of like Spinoza and wants to take a look at what's going on out there. Okay? And he would deny, Hegel and Heidegger would deny that meditation is even possible. You cannot separate and isolate out the thinking substance which you are from the avatar and the extended substance because they're the same thing. They go together. If you try to separate them out, everything collapses. Obviously, they have never practiced that. However, they would simply say, like Freud said, this is simply the result of some neurological activity that we don't understand right now, but it doesn't refer to anything real. Okay? So they would just simply dismiss it as an epiphenomenon, something that just happens out there that doesn't have any meaning whatsoever. Okay. So from Heidegger onward to the present day, phenomenology is languished. Phenomenology as the thing that Husserl wanted is gone. It's missing. And instead what we have are these convoluted attempts to try to describe the world from our perspective. And so you can see where that would lead. It would lead automatically to Weltanschauung philosophies. Okay? Anyway, if you get a chance, you can try to read this. And it is readable. I mean, once you understand what he's trying to talk about, it begins to make sense. It's just really hard because it's so bizarre. Dasein is an entity which, in its very being, capital B, comports itself understandingly towards that being. In saying this, we are calling attention to the formal concept of existence. Dasein exists. Furthermore, Dasein is an entity which in each case I myself am. Okay, mindness belongs to any existent Dasein and belongs to it as the condition which makes authenticity and inauthenticity possible. In each case, Dasein exists in one or the other of these two modes, or else it is modally undifferentiated. But these are both ways in which Dasein's being takes on a definite character, and they must be seen and understood a priori, as grounded upon that state of being which we have called being in the world. Okay? I mean, yeah, it makes sense. I understand what he's trying to talk about. But that's the kind of stuff that you're going to have to read if you're going to try to understand Heidegger, at least the early Heidegger. Okay? Any questions about that? Now remember, existentialism was all the rage in the 50s and 60s. All right? And it was all the rage because of this person, Jean-Paul Sartre. Okay, born in 1905, died in 1980. He was a student, briefly, of both Husserl and Heidegger. Okay? This is Being in Nothingness. This is the book. This is Being in Nothingness, a phenomenological essay on ontology. This was the first philosophy book I ever read. I picked it up when I was 12 because I liked the title. I especially liked this word and this word. Okay? They captured my attention. And of course I read it and it was really hard to understand. And I kept reading it, and I've read it so many times it's almost falling apart here. Okay? Sartre is basically the poor man's version of being in time. He took the concepts that Heidegger was trying to say and tried to put it in a little bit easier to understand format. He succeeded in a little bit because, it's a little bit easier to understand this, but he's still a materialist and he's still following Heidegger's lead, and he's still way far away from Husserl's phenomenological method. Let me read you the introduction to it. This is the chapter called The Pursuit of Being, and it's section 1, the phenomenon. Okay, now remember, phenomenon is that which reveals itself in its appearance. Okay, that's a phenomenon. You all are phenomena to me. I'm a phenomenon to you. Okay, it is that which reveals itself in the clearing, literally. That would go back to the ancient Greeks. That which reveals itself like, walking into a clearing. It's there, and you can just see it. It's not obscured or anything. Modern thought has realized, remember when this is being written, 1953. Modern thought has realized considerable progress by reducing the existent to the series of appearances which manifests it. So appearance is all that we're dealing with. Talking about Hume, talking about Wittgenstein. Appearance is what we've got. Its aim was to overcome a certain number of dualisms which have embarrassed philosophy and to replace them by the monism of the phenomenon. Okay, same thing that Spinoza was trying to do. Now, he says that that has been successful. That in fact, all we have to do is worry about the appearance of the objects out there, the phenomena, and they will lead us to the truth of the mystery. He is, of course, mistaken. All right? And he's not, when you actually take a look at it, he's not really very good. Okay? Because he's not doing what he should be doing. He's not standing on the solid ground of experience, of the actual experience of the two substances, which is brought about by these hard, difficult, meditative practices. He bypasses all of that, just like Heidegger did. He said it's worthless. It's a waste of my time. I'm just going to go off and start talking about this stuff, as if I knew what I was talking about. And I'm going to couch it in all of these really, really, really deep philosophical concepts, and I'm going to make up all these words, and I'm going to refer to all these other people that came before me as if I knew what the hell they were talking about. And I'm just going to spin off this fiction as if it were real, as if it were true. And it caught on, and everybody was talking about it. Sartre was all the rage. So was Heidegger. Okay? Now, Heidegger was a Nazi. He actually supported the Nazi program. And when he became chancellor of the university in 1933, which is the same time Hitler took over, his acceptance speech as chancellor is a praise of the Nazi party, Hitler, and their absolute eugenics program to, sterilize the world of unnecessary people and create the master race. So not only was he a weasel, he was also a Nazi. Now, Sartre was not. He actually fought in the French Resistance, and he was captured in a prison, in a POW camp. So at least he had some convictions. But he is not somebody, we only want to read him for an historical perspective and to try to understand what the existentialists are thinking. All right? He is not going to lead us to the truth of the matter, because he's a materialist, and because he doesn't understand and practice what all of the other people are attempting to do. Now, instead of Dasein and being in the world, he introduces, he again borrows from Hegel and uses for itself and in itself. The for itself is us, res cogitans, the thinking substance. The in itself is the res extensa. Okay? And it is the interaction between the for itself and the in itself that produces all of our experiences. Same thing as Heidegger was talking about, being in the world and Dasein. But he uses a couple of different Hegelian terms. But again, it's pointing to nothing. It does not lead us anywhere, except to a materialist perspective on reality, which is ultimately flawed. And again, he cannot pursue it. He cannot, it ultimately collapses because, I mean, you know, he criticizes Heidegger for never using the word consciousness once. He uses it all the time, but doesn't get any further because he doesn't understand what consciousness is. Is not willing to admit, like Heidegger was not willing to admit, that it is in fact something completely isolated, separate, different, totally, you know, removed from that. Okay? Because that is difficult to explain. I must admit, it is a difficult concept to explain. And everybody who adopts that position runs up against that difficulty. How do you explain the interaction between something which is non-local, non-temporal, non-corporeal, you know, has no existence, no space-time, anything, and how does it interact with all of this, you know, physical stuff out there? So they just abandon that and say, we're just going to look at the way that the two interact, and that's going to be reality, materialism. Okay. By the way, just this is the myth of Sisyphus, which is a really teeny tiny little text by Albert Camus, who was another of the existentialist writers. He's pretty good. He's actually a good novelist. So is Sartre, good novelist. Yeah.
So when you read that,
Mm-hmm.
when
This?
did you, is this what got you interested in pursuing a career in
Yes.
philosophy?
Yeah, this because it piqued my interest. And it took me quite a while, you know, reading a lot of this stuff until I finally got back to Husserl. And once I encountered Husserl, everything made sense. All of it made sense. Because he pulls it all together and he puts it on solid ground. And then I understood what these guys were saying that they were doing but weren't really doing, and why they were not doing what they said that they were doing. Because they were materialists and they didn't want to admit the fact that there is, in fact, a substance, a soul, that which we are, that is different and separate from all of this other stuff, including this. They were not willing to admit that. They wanted to abandon that. They wanted to abolish that. Like Sartre said, you know, embarrassing dualism said, now been overcome forever. Okay? Same thing that was being talked about in the natural sciences around 1875. You can go back and see articles written by major scientists out of the you know, London Royal Society saying, oh, we've discovered everything. We know everything there is to know about everything there is. That's what they're claiming in 1875. You know, now we're just sort of dotting the I's, crossing the T's, you know, checking the P's and Q's, a little few of the details, but we really know everything there is to know about everything that's out there, no more mystery, go home and go to sleep, okay? We've solved it all. Well, then the quantum revolution happens in 1900, and all of those people who were claiming that they knew everything now were out of the cold, because they didn't know anything. So, same thing here. Sartre's claiming we know everything there is to know about philosophy and the nature of reality, and you all can just go out there and fall asleep again. That's not the case. This book is about suicide. Okay? If we live in a world that is, you know, as evil and as dangerous and as ugly and as nasty as it appears to be, then why should we not avail ourselves of the avenue of escape by suicide? So this is a serious discussion of why we should not commit suicide. Okay, well worth reading, very interesting. And again, referring, pardon me,
How do you spell that?
Sisyphus, the myth of Sisyphus.
Oh, okay, that's what
Yeah.
it is then.
Yeah, this is the myth of Sisyphus. So he refers to Sisyphus and the Greek myth by saying, why doesn't Sisyphus just commit suicide? Why doesn't he just let the rock roll down on him? Just crush him.
What's the name of the book again, please?
The myth of Sisyphus.
What, please?
Sisyphus by Albert Camus, Camus.
Oh,
Okay. Again, really, well worth reading. Good little book here. Okay, practical, very practical. Okay. Any questions about the existentialist and phenomenology? So again, we have to be very careful when we're out there reading this stuff, because these guys are good. They're smart. I mean, they're no dummies, but they're off on the wrong track. And they violate all of this stuff. And periodically, someone like Descartes, someone like St. Augustine, someone like Husserl has to come back and point us back in the right direction again. Okay, and revivify the mystery. Because these people want to say it's all over with. There's no mystery anymore. Okay, and that simply is not the case. We're in, as Wittgenstein said, we're in as much a mystery as we were before, except we think we've been told that we've solved all of the mysteries. And so we just sort of hang out and believe that fiction and go to sleep and stop pursuing our goals. Okay, any questions or comments about that? All right, now we're going to just really fast run through all of the New Age stuff that began in 1875 with the Theosophical Society. This is all of the hidden mysteries coming out into the open. Now they have been hidden. They've been hidden from the general population ever since the mysteries were forced underground at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, 325 CE. Okay, at that point the Gnostics were forced underground and all of the mystery traditions were forced underground as pagan. And so we've been sort of tracing them along, the alchemists, the Knights Templar, the alchemists, the Masons, and now we're up to the more modern age, where it's now being brought out into the public, okay? And we're now getting to see all of this stuff that had been hidden from us for so long, and it is stuff that is coming from the ancient mystery religions to the present day. So the Theosophical Society is still out there in various versions of itself.
Oh, okay.
What?
The Theosophical Society?
Yeah.
That is, I spend time in Illinois.
Yes.
And there's, in Wheaton,
Wheaton, Illinois, huh?
there's the whole, that's the headquarters.
Awesome,
And
good.
I visited there, and, and we have some good friends who are very involved.
In the Theosophy?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's really amazing.
It is a creation of British intelligence. Okay, it was specifically designed to do two things, among others, two primary objectives, with bringing out Theosophy in 1875 and allowing Helena Blavatsky to be the sort of spokesperson for it. There was a shift in the religious attitudes of the people in the Western world. Okay, because of the Enlightenment and because of the age of the Enlightenment and because of the scientific education that everybody had, there was a more and more agnostic or even directly atheistic approach to classical organized religion. Now, organized religion is one of the means by which the state controls its subjects. So if you've got a bunch of atheists and agnostics running around, you've lost that method of control. So British intelligence said, what can we do to get them back in the fold? Well, we will bring back all of that ancient stuff, which will be brand new to these people because they've never seen it before. And we will introduce it as if it were, but it's not. We will introduce it in that way. And so they got Helena Blavatsky and they helped her write it and publish the secret doctrine, and then they can put it out there. Okay, so the New Age movement is a creation of British intelligence and the Central Intelligence Agency. All of it. Okay? Here's Helena Blavatsky. Born in 1831, died in 1891. Founded the Theosophical Society as a corporation in New York City in 1875. The term comes from the Greek word theosophia, theo, divine, God, sophia, wisdom, divine wisdom. Okay, can't beat that. This is the divine wisdom. You don't want to believe in all the stuff that you're learning in the Anglican Church? That's fine. We got the divine wisdom for you right here. She called it the archaic esoteric wisdom religion restored. Okay? The Secret Doctrine was published in 1888, just a little bit before she passed away. She said it's the transmission of the ancient wisdom from the Mahatmas, or hidden masters, who govern human evolution in secret. Okay? Somewhere out of Tibet. Why Tibet? Because it is very inaccessible and hard to get to, and no one could ever challenge the claim. Very few people would ever been to Tibet. Very few people would ever be going to Tibet. Very few people could even speak or read Tibetan. It's very difficult to read. So that's why the hidden masters were placed in Tibet. And she received all of this information from these hidden masters and then revealed it to the masses. Okay, now does that mean that in the Secret Doctrine there are not fragments of the actual truth that we have been following? Yes, there are. But it's mixed with all this hodgepodge of nonsense that makes it very difficult to just follow the mainline path. Okay? Because you're always up against one thing, and that is that you cannot progress in any of these New Age systems except through initiation by a master. So you're not going to get the next, chapter until you do what they tell you to do and pass their tests. So it's a very concrete kind of a control mechanism that was reintroduced as classical religions waned in the face of scientific progress. Here's the seal. There's the Theosophical Society seal. It's got the own symbol here at the top in Sanskrit. It's got the swastika. This is the right swastika, the one that goes to the right. The Nazis, of course, used the one that went to the left. It's got the seal of Solomon here, which is the interlocking triangles. It's got the Anak right here, which is the Egyptian symbol for life. And it's got the Ouroboros snake out there. So it's got pagan, it's got Jewish, it's got Indian, it's got Sanskrit, it's got all of these, it's basically this hodgepodge of all of this stuff. Okay? Cobbled together and put together with absolutely no intention of making a synthesis out of it, just to get a bunch of terms that people could then sound intelligent when they talked about it. Again, referring to things which really don't have any meaning, which don't have any reference, but they sound good. And they're mysterious. And they come from the East. Okay? Here's Annie Zant. Born in 1847, died in 1933. She inherited the Theosophical Society upon Blavatsky's death in 1891. And she teamed with a gentleman named C.W. Ledbetter, who discovered Jiddu Krishnamurti in 1909. Everybody familiar with Krishnamurti? Mm-hmm. Okay. There's Ledbetter. Take a look at him. One of the exalted masters, one of the enlightened beings, one of the people of the New Age movement, one of the saints of the New Age movement. That is Jiddu Krishnamurti when he's about 25. He was discovered when he was 14. They, Annie and Ledbetter had gone to India. And Ledbetter liked to go out and prey upon the young kids. He was a sexual predator. He was a pedophile. And he found Krishnamurti out there, basically bathing nude in the river when he was 14. And he liked it. So he picked him up, brought him back. And, basically had his pedophile ways with Krishnamurti for quite a while. Krishnamurti and his brother. Because Krishnamurti would not leave without his brother with him. Trained to be the theosophist world teacher, or the reincarnation of the ancient, Lord Maitreya coming out of India. The second coming of Jesus, basically. Separated from the Theosophical Society finally in 1929, when he had enough of his own money and enough of his own followers to actually get away from Ledbetter. Okay? So again, this is all tied up with British intelligence. It's all tied up with the pedophilia ring. It's all tied up with control mechanisms. It's all tied up with all of these nasty, really twisted things that were known at the time. Ledbetter was, had to leave from 1906 to 1909. He had to leave the Theosophical Society because he was molesting all the kids. It was in all the papers. Okay? Zant forced him to leave for 3 years so that everybody would forget about it. Then in 1909, he finds Krishnamurti and brings him in, and along with his brother, and they start to put him out there as, this second coming of Christ, basically. So he can molest him and his brother and everybody else that he wants to for quite a while. All right? The Golden Dawn, 1887 to the present, although it actually was disbanded in 1899 because of internal strife. People at the top wanted total control of it. They couldn't agree on anything, so they basically broke it up. And the next version of it was called the Stella Matutina, and it has, continued out there. It's still out there. And then Aleister Crowley and some of his acolytes recreated the Golden Dawn later on with his Real Regard. Okay? It is the synthesis of all the ancient mystery religions, and it's actually got a lot of good documentation. It was founded by William Wynne Westcott, born in 1848, died in 1925. High-ranking Mason, high-ranking Rosicrucian, high-ranking Theosophist. Okay? Co-founded the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn with S.L. McGregor Mathers in 1887. Why? Why do we need a high-level secret society based on the ancient mystery religions in the center of London that only accepts wealthy people as members? Why would we want that? If we're British intelligence. Yeah, control, spying. Okay, so the Golden Dawn becomes a center of British intelligence spycraft. Now that doesn't mean that the stuff we're going to look at in a minute isn't real, ancient mystery religion stuff. It is. Okay, but keep in mind where this is coming from, and keep in mind why it was founded. Here's S.L. McGregor Mathers. That's him dressed up in all of his Golden Dawn regalia. Okay, during one of their ceremonies. Okay, again, high-ranking Mason, high-ranking Rosicrucian. The Masons and the Rosicrucians were founded in order to create spies and in order to attract people into the organization so that they could be vetted in case they wanted to be advanced. There's the Rose Cross. Bunches of symbols there. I won't even bother. It would take us 10 hours to just try to analyze all of that stuff. Okay? There's the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. Okay? This is a Jewish document. This is a Jewish glyph. All right? Same thing. This is Keter. This is the earth. I'm sorry. This is Malkuth. This is the earth. This is Keter. That's the divine realm. This is a 10. There are 10 Sephira here. Sephira. 10 Sephira. Those circles are Sephira. 10 realms that you have to pass through instead of 7. Remember the Mandaeans said you had to pass through the 7 to get back to the divine realm? Well, the Jews weren't happy with 7. They wanted 10. Okay, and there are 22 paths that you can travel among these things. Same idea, though. We have to go from here, which is where we are, to here to get back to the divine realm. We have to pass through all of these tests, and we have to know all of the passwords and everything. There's Aleister Crowley. Okay, born in 1875, died in 1947, joined the Golden Dawn in 1898. He was a member of British intelligence from the beginning. Graduated from Cambridge. World famous mountaineer. Serious guy. World famous mountaineer. Self-described wickedest man in the world. In Greek, it was Tomegatherion, the great beast. 666. Now, why would he go out there and proclaim himself to be the most wicked man in the world and to found the Argentum Astrum and the Ordo Templi Orientis to promulgate sex and drug magic? Why would he do that? So that he can attract people who can be blackmailed by their sex and drug practices. So that he can infiltrate other magical societies for British intelligence. Okay? Founded the new Aeon in 1904 with his revelation of the book of the law. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, is the law. Love is the law, love under will. St. Augustine, in the 7th homily on the first epistle of John, says, love and do what you will. Okay? The law is philema, will. Philema in Greek. The Life of Gargantua and Pantagruel by Francois Rabelais is a story about these two guys, and one of the places where they go is the Abbey of Philema. Do what thou wilt was the motto above the door of the Abbey. Okay? The book was revealed to Crowley by a non-corporeal entity named Iwas. So this is the new law. Do what thou wilt. Interesting. That's the book. Here's the book. This is our version of it. This has not only the book, that book there, but also a commentary by Aleister Crowley. Okay? Notice all the symbolism and everything else. They really liked a lot of that stuff. There's Iwas. That's Crowley's sketch of the entity that revealed this book to him.
That's E.T.
Yep, that looks like one of the little grays, doesn't it? He did this in 1904, long before there were UFOs. Okay, there have been other people since then, Americans, involved with intelligence, involved with the Central Intelligence Agency and the space program, who have attempted to contact this entity. Some of them have claimed success. Okay, the Ordo Aurum Solis, from 1897 to present, was a sort of a sister version of this whole thing. Melita Denning and Osborne Phillips were the two primary authors of all of the books. This, by the way, is the complete Golden Dawn. This is the Golden Dawn system. Okay. This was, anyway, this is the Aurum Solis version of it. Okay? Same thing. It's an Ogdoadic tradition. Again, same kind of a thing. These people, organized, ostensibly for all of these things. It's good stuff. I mean, it's real stuff. And you can practice it and get real results. And then now that brings us to the fourth wave, which is G.I. Gurdjieff. All right? He's Russian, Armenian, Greek, growing up in Turkestan. So he's growing up right around Afghanistan, Iraq, that whole area over there that we're now looking at and focused on as the world history sort of focuses on that region. Studied Sufism, which is Islamic mysticism, traced the origin of all religions to the ancient mystery religions of Babylon, Egypt, and Greece, discovered hidden masters living in Turkestan. Real living masters, real people, from whom he learned his Sufism. Modernized these teachings for the West in London, called his system the fourth way, the way of the fakir, the way of the monk, and the way of the yogin were the first three. And Beelzebub's Tales to his grandson is the book that he published all of his stuff in. Very funny, very interesting, okay? Hard to read, obviously, because it's, if you don't know what he's talking about, it's not going to make a lot of sense, okay? These are the teachings of the Master. Be present at every thought. Keep your intention before you at every step you take. Your journey is toward your homeland, that is toward the divine. Traveling from the world of appearances to the world of reality. Solitude in the track. In all your outward activity, remain inwardly free. Learn not to identify yourself with anything whatsoever, least of all this thing. Remember your friend, God, the divine. Return to God. No aim but to attain reality. Struggle with alien thoughts, that is, thoughts that are not of God. Keep your mind on what you are doing, whether outwardly or inwardly. Be constantly aware of the quality of the divine presence. Become used to recognizing the presence of God in your heart. So this is coming from the 12th century, by the way. So this is what he learned from the hidden masters, this particular Islamic version of mysticism, Sufism. Same thing as we've seen before. Gnostic. This is Gnostic from the beginning to the end. There's the Enneagram. He designed it. He got it from the hidden masters. Now there's all sorts of things out there with the Enneagram. Okay? Mostly nonsense, but interesting reading. There's P.V. Uspensky, who popularized Gurdjieff's work in 4 books. Tertium Organum, In Search of the Miraculous, where he actually talks about his time with Gurdjieff. The Fourth Way, where he describes the methods and the things, the systems, and A New Model of the Universe in 1971. Okay, so all of this New Age stuff. It all, some of it's good. Some of it's nonsense. Some of it's British intelligence and CIA. So you're in a minefield. You have to be careful. Find your own path. Do your own studies. Don't rely on anybody telling you what the nature of reality is. And especially, as I keep saying in the other classes, be really, 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 really aware of any content that they want you to believe. If they want you to believe something, there's a hidden agenda. Find your own way. Discover your own beliefs. All right, any questions or comments before we break up? Yeah.
Were there many women philosophers?
Women philosophers?
Uh-huh.
No. And the reason for that is simply because, there have been a few out there. But most of them were men because women were not allowed in the universities.
Oh, okay.
So, after the Council of Nicaea happened, women were basically barred from almost any kind of intellectual activity. Okay? Now there are some current women philosophers, but they are mostly Weltanschauung kinds of philosophers. There aren't really any that have had the opportunity to, actually get out there and follow this particular line yet. Okay, now there are some very famous women mystics. Saint Teresa of Avila, really good. She knew what she was talking about. She talked about basically what we just saw with the Sufis. In order to keep your mind devoted to God, what you have to do is you have to create the interior castle. And that's the name of her major work, The Interior Castle. In other words, you construct in your imagination a castle, brick by brick, stone by stone, for your life. And in that meditation practice, what you will do is you will reveal the structure of nature, the structure of reality, and in the center of this castle you will discover God, the divine. Very important meditative practice. Obviously difficult, obviously time-consuming, but very worthwhile. Go ahead and give it a shot. See how big you can construct your castle. Okay, how many rooms you can put in. Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
So, to me, there's a lot here.
Oh, there is a lot here, yeah. And we have 2 more sessions and we'll tie it all together.
Yeah, I can't come, 'cause I'm leaving.
Oh, you'll be gone. Okay, you'll be able to see the information. But anyway, you had a question?
Well, if you're to approach this, because in reality, you suggest all these readings, is there any place to start?
No, don't start. I wouldn't start with the reading.
Start with the
Start with the
meditation?
practice, yeah. Start with the practice first. Then the reading will begin to make sense.
Okay.
Not only will it make sense, but you'll also have your own grounded experience by which you can then evaluate these guys.
So the truth will be within
Yes.
you.
Yes.
And is that where this British intelligence and all that came from, through the experience of you and others?
No. The British intelligence, remember, their objective is to control the population.
Right, but I mean,
Yeah.
did the knowledge of, knowing that, where did that come from?
Oh, that comes from contemporary sources, and also from classified information that has been declassified since then. Okay. For example, we know that Crowley was here in New York City for a number of years during World War I as a spy for British intelligence, MI6, against the Germans, because he spoke German. He was good at that. So he came over here, set up shop, published some of his books, published a newspaper, an occult newspaper, started the OTO here, a branch of the OTO, so he could get all the people involved in sex and drugs here, so he could then blackmail them. And at the same time, he would then be able to infiltrate all of the German kinds of organizations and things like that. So one of the things that happened was our intelligence services, our military intelligence services, came across him and assumed that he was in fact a German agent. And they sent an inquiry back to London, back to British intelligence, saying, hey, we found this German agent over here posing as a British citizen. Do you want us to arrest him? And the British intelligence sent back, no, don't touch him, leave him alone. Don't do anything, just leave him alone. Let him do what he wants to do. Don't interfere with him in any way, and don't follow him, don't do all of that stuff. So those are some of the kinds of documents that have been declassified since then and have been revealed, so we understand what it was that he was doing. And in the ensuing time since then, we have seen, through the declassification of both British intelligence, the Mossad in Israel, and our own Central Intelligence Agency and NSA's documents, we see how they operate. This is how they operate. Okay, so if you wanted, for example, if you were wealthy, if you were the scion of a wealthy family, and you wanted to get involved in all of this stuff, and you wanted to have a lot of sex and drugs, you joined, an intelligence service. And you could have access to almost anything you wanted. Anytime you wanted it, wherever you wanted it. Okay? So keep in mind, there's a twisted senior side to this whole thing. So it is not without risks when you start to delve into this kind of stuff.
So what you're saying is that the truth is within us, but to look, because not all of these organizations aren't necessarily bad, there's some truth in them, but beware.
Yes. Always be very, very, very careful of anything, especially modern stuff. We can go back and we can trust Plato. Okay? We can trust St. Augustine. We can trust Descartes. We can trust Spinoza. We can trust Kant. We can trust these guys because they were not involved in all this other stuff. When it starts to get a little bit iffy is during Hegel's time. Because at that point there is a concerted effort to sort of merge the two and to take over all of the educational institutions. And so from that time forward, so we get the warning from Nietzsche. Okay, at that point, because he's saying, look, you've got to be really careful at this point. Because he's seeing the Theosophical societies and everything, he's seeing all that stuff as it blossoms. And he recognizes it for what it is. And then as we move forward, we can watch the New Age. There are some exposés coming from the 1930s. And basically what these exposés are talking about, these are members of the Stella Matutina, these are members of the OTO, these are members of some of the other secret societies, these magical orders. And what they are saying is that these are being used in order to get candidates in there to be brainwashed through the rituals, to be actually brainwashed. And they're saying, so they're creating agents, they're creating people using the cover of the OTO and the Argenta Master and the Golden Dawn and all these other things. You get somebody in there, you get them involved in sex and drugs, you put them through these magical rituals, you brainwash them, you blackmail them, and then you've got somebody that can be controlled. Okay? So there is this sinister side to it. There's always that, especially in the modern era, there's always that. That we have to be very careful, we have to be very alert to, and always be aware that it's there. And so find the true path, find the path, that leads back to the original place of being, to where we are. And that's where we get the meditative practice, because that's you by yourself, just exploring the mystery. Okay, that cannot be faked, that cannot be compromised. It's just you. Right, that's it. Which is why the ancient methods were so very effective. Okay? And then as you move forward and see, with with Descartes and Husserl, their methodologies, Wittgenstein, their methodologies then are, will make a lot of sense if you've actually done a classical meditation, and you can see what they're trying to do. Okay? So we can trust Wittgenstein because he's actually trying to, the preface to the book, he says, look, I don't really care if you agree with me. I wrote this book. If you like it, fine. If you don't, who cares? You know, I mean, that's his attitude in the first book. And then later on, of course, he gets involved in the British Society and everything else, and he's teaching in Cambridge. And his later work is less insightful than the first book. Well, I don't even want to say that he's influenced. It may have been that situation where this under stress of being a POW, I mean, he actually, you know, was there and caught a glimpse of it. Whereas later on, it's just, you know, early genius trying to recapture what is going on. You know, this is the only book that was published during his lifetime. Everything else was collated from notes and stuff of his students, lecture notes and things like that. So, you know, it's different. He wasn't thinking for publication. He was teaching. So that's a different matter. Yeah, these guys are trustworthy. A lot of them are trustworthy. And if you, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Test it. See if it works. See what it does. See what the effect is. But be careful, because some of it is dangerous. Except the classical meditative practice. That is not dangerous. But, you know, this kind of stuff is. You start to get off into the esoteric magic kind of stuff. You're dealing with strange things. You know, that will reveal the mystery of all of its glory. Okay? So yeah, you have to be careful when you start to investigate all this stuff. But it's all along the same pathway. All right, anything else? No? All right, we'll see you in a month. Okay, we'll bring it up to date with the scientific background and the scientific validation of all of this, and go from there. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Wittgenstein?
Good.
Well, he didn't like it because Bertrand Russell, he didn't think Bertrand Russell understood what he was trying to say. Okay, so his interpretation, he said that Russell's interpretation of the text was inaccurate.
Yeah.
But because it needed to be published.
Hi, how are you?
The publishing house would publish it unless
Ready to do a little dance tomorrow?
because the Lord Bertrand Russell had a lot of influence.
Me too,
Okay?
Well,
See?
too old to get in.
Yeah, that's the one I Yeah, exactly. That's a serious project. And in fact, we find Schopenhauer a little bit earlier, you know, who was fairly wealthy, actually saying, no, everybody should commit suicide. Just kind of sucks. You know, but while he, you know, he's having this discussion while he's sitting at his table with his friends eating lots of food. So, you know, there is that kind of nonsense.
So what's the point? Might as well enjoy.
Yes, and then there's this other side which we get a glimpse of now,
Now and
moving more towards the modern day. Oh, thanks. Question? Oh, it was an interesting article. Yeah, there's some things we can look at. Oh, in the Sure, yeah, this is, yeah, on Amazon. Yeah, all of these are available. Yeah, these are all really easy. Yeah, quite a few of them are actually. Yeah, most of them too.
Like you said, you have to sit.
I do. I'm good for something.
but this is
Oh, you're welcome. Oh, perfect, yeah, that's, so you'll have it.
yeah, and it talks about
Oh, yeah. Yep, yep, absolutely, absolutely. In Illinois.
Yeah, evidently, yeah, it was kind of that way.
Is
You know, like I
But-
heard the
Yep.
president speak,
I've
but
never
like, you
seen
know, like they were saying, take what you can use and leave the rest.
And keep in mind its origins,
Yeah.
and understand it. Not everybody in it is bad, obviously. Most everybody in it is just like us. They're just looking for something, and this happened to click. Yep, this they really liked this because it had everything that they needed.
If I
Yeah.
go on the inner, on his website and pick up that
We have that.
Just exactly.
They have things that really resonate.
Yeah.
There's so much conflict.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, you're welcome. Yeah, exactly. See? Yeah. Well, that's okay.
The
Yeah.
last couple, but I'll look down up.
Yeah, just check your website. We'll be out there.
What's in your, what are you doing?
Gator.
I know,
Yeah, just Gatorade. Yeah, just something simple. All
Tomorrow.
right.
What's that?
You guys have a safe trip.
Yeah, we will, thank you.
Okay. Oh, okay, good. Ooh, okay. Yeah, exactly.
I'm glad I came.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, let's see here. Oh, we'll turn off this.
My book.